Hello, once again, I welcome you back to my YouTube channel. This video is going to be the continuation of our CI/CD pipeline project. If you recall, we started a project where we intend to deploy a web application from end to end, meaning we want to deploy the application starting from when the code is available in our Git repository up to the end where the application is deployed to Kubernetes and we can access the application on the browser. Started by testing the application locally on our machine to ensure that the application was actually working, and we were able to do that. And the next stage we moved to continuous integration stage, which I walk you through the process of deploying the application, of building the application from the source code up to when the application was deployed, was pushed to to DockerHub repository. Let me quickly show you the diagram, if you can still remember. If you recall this diagram, I explained to you how the application is being built, starting from the Git repository up to the Git checkout. Then we perform Maven build, Maven test, Trivy for file scan, SonarQube analysis, then quality git check. Then after that, we have the build and store the artifact in an artifact repository. In this case, we use Nexus, and later we push the our DockerHub registry. And we said that this completed the CI stage of the pipeline. So in this video, what we are going to be doing now is continuing the process and completing the last stage of the pipeline, which is the continuous deployment process, or the continuous deployment stage, which we call the CD stage. Don't forget, it is a CI/CD project. So we have completed the CI, as you can see on your screen. Now we want to go ahead and do the CD. And the CD, it is when the application is deployed from DockerHub onto Kubernetes. Now, diagram from screen, you will see this is the setup that deployed the application to Kubernetes. And I've tried to make this architecture as simple as possible. So we have our Kubernetes cluster. Let me pick up my pen. Let me take large, extra large. So from here, we have the Kubernetes cluster. And we already have our application image present in our Artifactory registry, in this case, our DockerHub. So we are going to configure a mechanism such that this image is going to be pulled from Docker image, and it's going to be what? It's going to be pulled from Docker image, and it's going to be what? Sent or deployed to what? To Kubernetes. And in this case, we are going to be using an Elastic Kubernetes service on AWS. So we are going to set up our cluster, our Kubernetes cluster on AWS. Now, what do we need to achieve this or to accomplish this process? Now, in DevOps, there are several ways by which application can be deployed to Kubernetes. We have several ways, but for a start, we are going to be using a method called with credentials. We are going to be using, configure credentials between our Jenkins pipeline, our DockerHub, and the Kubernetes cluster. We are going to configure some credentials, and those credentials will create a synergy. We create a communication between your Jenkins and Kubernetes cluster so that the application can be deployed. So now, what do we need? What are the things that we need? Okay, what do we need? What, get this done. Okay, what do we need? One, we need to have our image ready in what? Image must be ready in our what? DockerHub, which we already have. Our image must be ready in our DockerHub. Then two, we need to have our Kubernetes. We need to have our Kubernetes cluster. In this case, we are going to be using our EKS. We are going to do a Kubernetes cluster on EKS. And of course, just because of time, I've already deployed that and I'm going to show you. Then after we have deployed, we have set up we have configured our EKS on AWS. Then what are the other configuration or what are the other requirements that is needed? We need the following. One, we need to have Docker installed. Don't forget our Jenkins is running on an EC2 machine. So we need to have Docker installed on the EC2 machine where Jenkins is running. Okay. Then we need to have what we call kubectl. kubectl. kubectl is a tool that allows you to interact with Kubernetes cluster. So we need to install kubectl on the what? On the Jenkins EC2 machine too. Okay, we need to install kubectl on Jenkins EC2 machine. After that, we need to install WSCLI. We need to install AWS CLI. AWS CLI is the command line interface for AWS that allow us to programmatically communicate with our AWS platform. Okay. Through this AWS CLI, we will be able to communicate with our AWS platform. Now, we also need to install some plugins. Okay, we need to install some plugins on our Jenkins. So the first plugins we need to install on Jenkins is called Kube or Kubernetes CLI. We need to install Kubernetes CLI plugins on Jenkins, and we need to install AWS credential plugin. Now, we need AWS credential plugin on our Jenkins so that we can provide our AWS credential to Jenkins so that AWS will be able to communicate with Jenkins. So we're going to need all of these to be able to deploy, to establish communication between our Jenkins and the cluster, and then we'll be able to deploy the application. Now, let's go on to this one after the other. Now, we have our image ready in our DockerHub. Of course, if you go into my DockerHub, remember that we have deployed our application there from our CI stage. Now, the next one is to create our EKS cluster. Now, normally, EKS cluster takes about 15 to 20 minutes to create. So what I've done because of the purpose of time, I have created this application before this video. So what do? I already have Okay, I already have the application of my VS Code. Okay, this is my VS Code, and I already have a Terraform code. This Terraform code is going to create AWS EKS. It's going to create an EKS cluster in what? In your US1 region, and it's going to create it. It's going to make it highly available. It's going to create it in three regions. Sorry, it's going to create it in 3 zones. US is 1A, 1B, and 1C. And you can just go through on and on like that. So there are so many applications. It's going to create the role. It's going to create permission for. It's going to do a lot of stuff. Okay, it's quite a long line of code. So all you just need to run is when you have this code, which I'm going to provide the link in the comment section. So just copy when you clone the repository, you're going to have this. You're going to have this Terraform clone and this Terraform code. And all you just need to run on your command is to run. You're going to run terminal. So you're just going to run Terraform init, like this, Terraform init, and after that, you're going to run Terraform apply. So when you want Terraform apply, and at the head of when it is completed, this is what you are going to have. Okay, this is what you are going to have. So you are going to have the Terraform created. It's going to output the following information. It's going to output the cluster endpoint. It's going to output the cluster name, and it's going to tell you the region where it is created. So this is what you're going to have after the cluster has been created. Like I told you, I have created this. You can see about 33 resources were created. That is why it takes a lot of time to create a cluster, because it does not just create a cluster. It creates a lot of resources, a lot of supporting resources for the cluster. Now, let us see our cluster. So if I go onto my AWS console, right here, you will see that if I go to EKS service, Elastic Kubernetes service, you will see that a cluster has been created, and the name of the cluster is my cluster, my web cluster. And if I click on it, it has about 6 resources that are active. If you click on resources, you will see that there are a lot of resources here that have been created along with it. Then it has about 2 nodes that are running, or 3 nodes that are running, and they were created 16 minutes ago. And if you click on compute, it will tell you the nodes. Okay, if you look at it, these are the nodes here. And if you go to your EC2 page, you're going to see this 2 node has been added to the EC2 section. This is the web nodes, the node group. So there are a lot of information that you can see on your cluster. Now, if you go to your EC2, if you click on EC2, see that in my EC2 platform, apart from my Jenkins and SonarQube server, there are other 2 extra servers that are on it. Those are the 2 nodes that I showed you just now. Now, our cluster is ready. Now, what other things do we need? Now, we need to install Docker on our EC2 machine that is having the Jenkins. Of course, I've connected that, and this is my terminal. It is connected to the Jenkins server. This is our Jenkins server here, and this is the SonarQube server. So, for the Jenkins server, it has us to install what? We need to install Docker we need to install kubectl, and we need to install AWS CLI. Okay, so let us check on. I've installed all of that. So if I come here, if I come to my terminal, I can look for kubectl version. Okay, I've installed it. That's right there. I have put all the command that you need to install this. I've put in the repository. You're going to see it there. But for purpose of time, I've done all of this ahead of time. Then I have kubectl installed, Docker version. Docker has also been installed, and AWS version, I think. So you can see also AWS CLI is also installed. So we have all of this installed. Now, after that, what next do we have? We now need to install the plugins on Jenkins. Before we install the plugins on Jenkins, we need to configure something on our terminal. We need to configure the AWS credential. We need to provide AWS credential to the Jenkins so that it will be able to communicate with our AWS platform. And how do you do that? You are going to use the command, and let me zoom out. You're going to use the command AWS configure, and it's going to ask you for your AWS access key, which I've already provided. If you have not provided it before, you are going to copy and provide it, and you go to click enter, and it's going to ask you for secret access key. You are going to provide that as well. You click enter. It's going to ask you for the region. You can leave it as default, and it's going to ask you for default. So this has been done. And where do you get this AWS credential? We got this AWS credential from our AWS platform. Before you can use your AWS can use Jenkins, you can communicate with your EKS cluster. You need to create a user and provide the appropriate permission for the user to be able to use to communicate with EKS. Now, what do? I went to my AMI, and you should look at it. I have a user here. That is one user. And you should look up, that user is called Felix Admin. And you should look at the top right here. That is the user that is logging here. So this user that is logging into this AWS platform must have the permission to perform actions to perform EKS cluster actions. So I have to come here and add some permission. So if you look at it, I added all this permission. These permissions are readily available in your AWS. So all you just need is to come up here and click on add permission, and you're going to type in the permission and you're going to add it. So I had about 4 or 5 permissions here. EKS node policy, EKS service provider, ECS cluster policy, and EKS CNI. So I added this all permission to allow this user to be able to communicate with our EKS cluster. So that needs to be done. Or if you don't want to add it directly to your user, you can create a user on the so you can call that user Jenkins and give the user all these permission. Now, having done that, now let's go back to our. So the next thing now is to install the plugins, kubectl CLI plugins and AWS credential plugins. We are going to go to our Jenkins. So let us click on our Jenkins. From here, I will go to dashboard. So I'll click on manage Jenkins. I will go to what install. So you go to click on what plugins. Then you can, if you are for the, you click on available plugins so that you'll be able to install plugins. But like I told you, so for example now, if I type Kubernetes, it's not going to be there because I've already installed it. So don't forget we need 2 things: Kubernetes CLI plugins and AWS CLI plugins. So I've just come to install plugins to just show you that this plugin have been installed. So it's a bit slow. That's strange. I don't know why. So bear with me. I've actually increased the. You should look at it. You should look at EC2. I intentionally increased it because I noticed that it was It was sluggish. So I increased. Look at it. I'm using M5 for large. This is about 16 core. That is quite huge. So I'm surprised it's still. So now we are in available. We are in stop logging now. So what have I installed? I installed Kubernetes. So this is it here. See it? Kubernetes CLI plugin. So I just install it, and after that, I also install AWS credential. AWS credential. You can see this is another plugin. These two plugins have been installed. Now, after you have installed these two plugins, we also need to configure the AWS credential plugins by providing the access key and the secret access key that we provided earlier on. We need to provide it here. So I'm going to go back to manage Jenkins. Then what? Provide the credentials, and I'll show you why we have just a second. Let's give it some. So you come back here and you go to credentials. Okay, you click on credential. Here you're going to look for AWS credential. Okay. Like I said, I've already configured it, but I will just show you. So if you look at it here, this is what I call AWS cred. What we have just done is you just click on global. You click on global. Sorry, I don't know why this is. So you click on hard credential. Okay. When you click on hard credential, then you'll be able to select AWS credential, and then you provide access key and the secret access key, which you must have downloaded from your IAM user. Okay. So if you click here now, you're going to see AWS credential. Here, the ID will be the name of the credential, which I have called AWS Cred in my own case. And here it says access key. You're going to copy and paste it. Secret access key. You're going to copy and paste it, and you're going to create it. And when you create it, that is where you're going to have that that credential that we have. Okay, that is where you're going to have that credential that we have. Show you once again. Credential that we have. So now the next thing we are going to do now is after. So this is the credential. If you look at it here, AWS credential. Okay, name is what? AWS cred, and that's what we are going to be using. So now let's go back to our dashboard. So when you first configure your AWS, after you have configured your AWS credential and you have configured every other credential that will allow your Jenkins to communicate with, your EKS. So the next thing you want to do is to go and check, need to go and confirm if your AWS, if your Jenkins can communicate with your cluster. That is the first thing we need to do. And in that case, we'll click on our web app, click on configure. So I don't know why this thing is taking long. So you click go. So the first thing you want to do is to check if your AWS, if your Jenkins can communicate with your cluster. Jenkins can communicate with your cluster. So I'm going to come here. Okay, I'm going to come inside my pipeline here, and I want to check it here. Okay, so here, instead of using, back this up, instead of using, let me back this, stick somewhere. Okay, now I'm going to remove this line script. I want to use it to what? To test my connection. If my connection from Jenkins to cluster can work. So I have a script here that I can use to test. Okay, so this is the script, and I'm going to explain to you what the script is doing. So I'm going to put the script here, and if you look at this, the script is just testing what is the name of the cluster, web app cluster, and look at the credential, the access key and the secret access key that we have provided, and the credential we just created just now, AWS cred. This is it. This is okay. We generate this from pipeline syntax, and what is it doing? It's testing kubectl. Okay, it's testing what? kubectl. So we are going to run it, and let us see if it is successful. If it is successful, that means what? It is what? It is connecting your. It is connecting with your what? With your cluster. So I will just here. I will save it. Okay. When I save it, I will go back to my Jenkins and click on build. Let us see if it's going to if it will be able to connect with your cluster. I don't know why this is slow. It's annoying, but please just bear with me. So now that I've put it there, so I'm going to click on what? Build now. So you can see it says connect to EKS. So that is what it's testing now. And you can see it is what? It is successful. If I click on the log, you can see it says what? Echo testing kubectl access. Testing get mode. So it was able to connect. And if you look at it, you can see there is two cells. Let me try to zoom out a little bit. You can see there are two clusters. If you look at it, there are two clusters here that were connected, and these are the two clusters that are present in your node. So this is telling us now that our Jenkins can successfully what? Deploy application to our Kubernetes cluster. Now let's go ahead and deploy the application. So I'm going to go back to configure now, and I already have our script there. Don't forget, in our old CI pipeline, we have our pipeline up to the point where the application is deployed to what? To is pushed, is where the image is pushed to DockerHub. So now we are just going to add the last stage where the application is deployed to Kubernetes. That's what we are going to add. And that is what I have inside the other script that I copied just now. So I'm going to copy this script, and I'm going to explain that stage to you. So I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it inside here. I'm going to do Control A and Control V. So I've pasted it now. Now, let's try to what? Let's try to explain what we have here. So this is the stage that I've added. At that stage, starting from line 96, I said deploy to Kubernetes cluster. Don't forget, this is where we stopped before. Push the image to what? DockerHub. Now we want to deploy to Kubernetes cluster. So if you look at it here now, what is it doing? It's just copying the credential from when we have the connection. If you don't forget, if you look at my connection code, this is it here. And you should see this is just the part of it that is inside what I have here. We have the credential name, which we configure under manage Jenkins. We have the AWS CLI. Now, then we have the command. The command to what? This is the command to connect to the cluster. AWS EKS update kubectl. This kubectl file is the one that creates the authentication between your AWS, so between your Jenkins and the EKS cluster. Then we have this command will go and dynamically change and update the image immediately it is being built by Docker. Then it's now going to apply something we call manifest file. Now, for you to deploy an application to Kubernetes, you must get something we call Kubernetes manifest file. This Kubernetes manifest file usually comes in two forms. One of them is the deployment.yaml file, and the other one is service.yaml file. The deployment.yaml file is responsible for the deployment of the application to Kubernetes because it's going to tell you the number of replica that you want to produce, and it's going to give the type of application. Why the service.yaml file is the one that will create the service that will allow you to access your application after it has been created. And now, in my repository. So if you come into my repository, you're going to see deployment.yaml file, and this is the deployment.yaml file. And what does it look like? Let me zoom in and look here on YouTube. Okay, if you see me, look at it here. The deployment.yaml file is of the kind deployment, and the name of the app. The name of the app is what? Web app. And if you look at it, the image, this is the image as applied in our Docker registry. And there's something we call readiness probe. This readiness probe is going to check if your Kubernetes cluster is ready to accept application. And there's something we also call liveness probe. You always check if your application, if your Kubernetes cluster is live and ready. And so if we move ahead now, if we go to the service.yaml file. Where is it? Service.yaml. This is service.yaml file, and this is telling you that it is of the kind service, and what type of service is a load balancer service because it is a cloud resources, and it's going to tell you that this application is going to be what? It's going to be exposed on port 80, and this is because when the application was built in the Docker file, it was exposed on port what? Port 8080. So that is why in your service.yaml, the target port has to be what? Port 8080. The target port is the port where the load balancer will direct the traffic. And also, we also need to know that in the deployment.yaml file, if you look at this thing called path in line 31. This thing called path. This is telling you that when traffic is directed to port 8080, then that traffic should be looking for the application in this path called /Tesla. And you're going to see it when that is done. So we need these two files to what? To deploy our application. So let's go back to our Jenkins. Now that we have all this, and you can see that is the file, deployment.yaml file, and the service.yaml file. And this is the command. kubectl apply -f deployment.yaml file, kubectl apply -f service.yaml file. And you can see this where this kubectl is important now. So those are the ones that will deploy the application. And then after that, it's going to clean up the application. So this is the cleanup part. So now, let's go, and if you see something here, it's saying that it's just telling you that the report should be set to report.html file. So that is not very important. So now, the next thing now is to try to save, apply, save, then we'll go and run our pipeline. So if you run the pipeline now, we expect that the application will be deployed to Kubernetes. So when the application is deployed to Kubernetes, we'll go on our terminal and access it, and then we can see what we have there. So I will just go here now, and I will click on Build Now. So if I click on Build Now, so it has picked up, It's going to start the process. So it's deploying the application now. It's going to rebuild the application from the scratch. Okay. It's going to it's doing the trivia scan now, SonarCube analysis, um, ticket check, to artifact, push to Docker image, push to DockerHub. It's going to scan, trivia scan, and after that, it will push the image to uh, Docker registry. So that's what it. And if you look at this process, it take a couple of minutes or seconds. Now, if you look at the our, let me to open this. Let me quickly open this. Why it is? I hope I can still read it. So output. Let me open it now. And I go to my, if I go to my Maven, and if you look at my deployment in your YAML file, it's saying that it should create 3 replicas. That is, it should create a pod that looks like itself, 3 of it. So if you go to our output, console output now, we are supposed to see, I hope it's not failing. We are going to see what the deployment is still going on. You're going to see what the deployment is all about. So let's see what we have. I'm surprised this thing is looking like. So if you go to the terminal now, you can see it's rolling out. It's waiting for the deployment. It has created one. It's creating the second one now. Because you have indicated inside your deployment.yaml file that it should create 3 replicas. So that's why it's created 3 replicas now. It's created the first one, the second one. And when the 3 out of 3 is completed, it will be hard. So it's creating one, it will terminate the whole one until the deployment is completed. So it's still rolling out. It's rolling out the application. And it said web app rollout to finish. One whole replica are pending termination. Okay, don't forget it's dealing two. It's going to create 3 of 3. So it's done 2 out of 3 now. So when this line is completed, then our application will be deployed to Kubernetes. So let's see, it's still rolling here. So it's successful. You can see it. The application has been, you see, deployment web app successfully rolled out. And you can see now, this is the external IP. The load balancer has been what? Created. So this is the load balancer that is going to route traffic to our application. And that is what we are going to use to access our application. And you can see here it says deployment completed successfully. And if you go back here, you are going to see now that the deployment is what? Successfully completed and is doing the post action. So if I come here now and copy this load balancer here straight ahead, but if I don't want that, I can go to my terminal. And this is my Jenkins terminal. First and foremost, I need to connect my terminal to my Kubernetes cluster. So if I just say the command used to check the application is kubectl get pods. Pods are those applications that are created. But it's going to give me error because what? I have not connected this terminal to my cluster. So the first thing I need to do is to connect it to cluster. And what is the command to connect it to cluster? The command is what? AWS EKS update kubectl update kubectl update kubectl hyphen name or hyphen region. What is the region? The region is US East 1. That is where US, where our our application is deployed. And what is the name of the cluster? Name of the cluster is my web. Check it. Let's quickly check it. Our cluster name. If I click on See the cluster is my web cluster. So we are right. So I will come here, cluster, and I will click enter. So you can see now it has updated my kubectl and my kubeconfig. So if I do my command again, kubectl get ports, you can see it's going to give me 3 ports. The 3 ports that we created, and all of them are what? They are running. Now, how can we get them? How can we access this port? We are going to access them service. Now, I can now say kubectl get service. And I click enter. And you can see it's giving me the same load balancer that is available here. If you look at it, it started with A6044. And if you go to my Jenkins pipeline, you will see now that it started with what? A0644. If you look at it here. So I just see it. I think that's too much. Okay, and this is what we are going to use to check our application. So I can as well copy from here, or I can also copy from the terminal to to my another browser. I'm going to paste it, and if you click enter, you won't be able to access it. Why? Because you have told your application. If you go back to your, so if you go back to your, you have told your application to route your traffic to what? / Tesla. So I have to come back here and do what? I will paste it and I will do / Tesla to be able to access my application. You can see this is my application now. It's up and running. And if you want to know if this is working, let us go and what? Change something in our application. Okay? Let's go and check something in the application and let us see if it's going to be what? Effective. So I'm going to go to the source code, index.html, and instead of welcome to this name here, Solavis Technology, I want to change it to my company name. I'll say welcome to Sharpen Solutions. That is the name of my company. Welcome to the landing page of Sharpen Solution. Now, I'm going to save this. Okay, the application again. I'm now going to my pipeline, the application again, and let us see what happens. So I will click on build now again. So I'll click on build now again. I will pause the video. When it is completed, I will come back and we will see what we have. So I will pause it. So the deployment is completed, and then let us now go to our application. You can see it is completed here, and of course, if I look at the logs, I think we can see it. So if I go back here and I refresh the application, I think we should see something different. Okay. We should give it a little bit of time for it to settle in. It's my log. Let me see it. Log. Okay. So I'll go here. Let me see if the load balancer is different. I will get service. We see the same load balancer. So we should be having the same. So I copy it. Taking time. I'll come here. / Tesla. That's strange. Change. Sure why it's not changed. Let me check again. Not changed. That is strange. That is very changed. Okay, I'm going to try again. I'm going to try to rebuild once more. Surprise. I will try click build now again. Process will start all over again because I expect that the changes that we make should be effective. Okay, I expect it to be effective. So I'm still going to pause the video and come back when it is completed. So the application was successfully deployed, but still, I'm still very surprised that this change has not been affected. So I'm going to look into that. But that is uh, we can how we can deploy this application, and successfully we can access it. Let me check something to check. There's no IP address assigned to this E2 instance. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I wanted to check if the changes have been affected on the EC2 instance. But anyway, we have been able to achieve our our aim, and our application has been successfully deployed to Kubernetes. So this completes the what CD section or the CD stage of the application, and this is the end-to-end deployment of an application. Start from the availability of the source code up to when the application is deployed to Kubernetes. So please make sure that you tear down these resources, especially your Kubernetes. Make sure you destroy it because it costs a lot of money. Please make sure you destroy it by using the command Terraform destroy. If you don't want it to ask you for permission, just use -f destroy destroy the cluster. I think there's an error here. Multi. So just use Terraform destroy, and you should be able to destroy it. I don't know why I have an option. I think let me do Control C. I believe. I remember the other time I mistakenly click into it. Let me believe that is what it is. I will clear the. So just make sure you destroy it, and okay. So it is the destroy now. It's going to destroy all the resources. So I'm going to make available the repository and all the information and the command, the README file of the step-by-step approach on how to accomplish this. Please try to carry it out. And if you have any question, please put it in the comment section, and I'll be very glad to attend to it. Please, if you love this video, kindly subscribe and like, so that whenever I upload a new video, you'll be able to get notification. Thank you for your time, and see you in the next video. Peace.